Welcome to the book of Proverbs, chapter 1. In this video, we'll explore the first 10 verses, where Solomon lays the foundation of all wisdom. Prepare your heart to receive these ancient teachings. Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. This opening verse is not just a literary formality. It establishes the authority and historical context for the entire book we are about to study. When we read the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, we are presented with three fundamental credentials that give weight to these words. First, we have Solomon, a name that has become synonymous with wisdom throughout human history. According to 1 Kings, chapter 4, Solomon received unparalleled wisdom from God. He uttered 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. Kings of all nations came to hear him. His wisdom was not theoretical or academic, but practical, tested in the administration of an entire kingdom. Second, he is identified as son of David. This is no casual genealogical detail. David was the man after God's own heart, the king through whom the messianic lineage would be established. Solomon inherits not just a throne, but a spiritual legacy. He was raised in a home where worship of God was central, where the Psalms were composed, where the divine presence was intensely sought. Third, he was king of Israel. This means that Solomon did not write as a philosopher isolated in an ivory tower. He was a leader who dealt daily with disputes, trials, political decisions, and moral dilemmas. His wisdom was forged in the heat of royal responsibility. When he speaks of justice, equity, and prudence, he speaks as one who had to exercise these virtues in concrete and complex situations. There is also a prophetic aspect to this verse. Solomon, in all his glory and wisdom, is a shadow of someone greater. Jesus Christ, the true Son of David, is called in the New Testament greater than Solomon. All the wisdom of Proverbs ultimately points to Christ, who is the wisdom of God personified. This verse also teaches us something about how God works. He does not choose to reveal his wisdom through angels or isolated mystical visions. He uses real people with real stories in real contexts. Divine wisdom comes through human instruments qualified by God. For us, modern readers, this verse is a reminder that the wisdom we are about to receive is not the product of human speculation, but of divine revelation mediated through a man chosen and empowered by God. We are not simply reading advice from an ancient sage, but the Word of God, expressed through the experience and anointing of Solomon. Finally, this verse invites us to a posture of humility and receptivity. If these are words coming through the wisest king in history, chosen by God for this task, then we should approach this book with reverence, attention, and a willingness to learn and change. To know wisdom and instruction, to understand the words of understanding. Now Solomon presents us with the first purpose of this book, to know wisdom and instruction. This verse answers the fundamental question, why does this book exist? And the answer is transformative. The word know here does not simply mean to have information about something. In Hebrew, the verb used implies intimate experience, a deep relationship. It is the same verb used when the Bible says that Adam knew Eve. To know wisdom means to live it, experience it, and have an intimate relationship with it. Wisdom in Hebrew is chokmah, and it goes far beyond intelligence or academic knowledge. Wisdom is the ability to apply God's knowledge to practical life situations. It is knowing what to do, when to do it, and how to do it correctly. A doctor may have knowledge of anatomy, but wisdom is knowing how to use that knowledge to heal. A parent may know principles of education, but wisdom is applying them with discernment to each unique child. The word instruction conveys an even deeper concept. The Hebrew term musar includes not only teaching, but discipline, correction, even rebuke. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Growing in wisdom often involves correction. It involves recognizing that we've been wrong. It involves changing direction. Instruction isn't always comfortable, but it's always necessary. In the second part of the verse, we read, "To understand the words of understanding." The word understand here means to discern, to distinguish, to separate. It's the ability to see beyond the surface, to identify what truly matters amidst the many voices and options. In an age of information overload like ours, this ability is more precious than ever. Words of understanding refers to statements that contain profound insight into reality. They are not just pretty or eloquent words, but words charged with truth that illuminate the path. They are words that reveal the nature of things as they truly are, not as they appear to be. This verse teaches us that wisdom is not something we are born with. It is acquired through a deliberate process of learning. We need to know, that is, actively seek. No one becomes wise by accident or osmosis. It takes intention, effort, and openness to receive instruction. We also learn here that wisdom and instruction go hand in hand. There is no genuine wisdom without a willingness to be instructed, corrected, and shaped. People who reject all correction will never grow in wisdom, no matter how intelligent they are. For today's generation, this verse is a direct challenge. We live in a culture that values opinion over instruction, that celebrates self-confidence over the humility to learn. But Proverbs calls us to a different path, the path of recognizing our need for wisdom that comes from outside ourselves. The verse also reminds us that there is a difference between information and transformation. We can accumulate data endlessly, but without wisdom to apply it and instruction to shape us, we will remain immature. This book exists not only to inform us, but to transform us. Verse 3, to receive the instruction of understanding, righteousness, judgment. This verse expands on the purpose of Proverbs, showing us that wisdom is not abstract. It manifests itself in three concrete areas of life: justice, judgment, and fairness. Here we see wisdom descending from the heaven of ideas to the earth of human relationships. The phrase, "receive the instruction of understanding," is fascinating. The word receive suggests an attitude of openness, humility, and recognition that we need something that comes from outside of us. It's not about earning or deserving, it's about receiving as a gift. But receiving requires open hands and a willing heart. Instruction of understanding combines two powerful concepts. It is instruction that not only tells us what to do, but helps us understand why we should do it. It is not blind obedience, but enlightened obedience. It is discipline that produces discernment. Now notice the three specific areas mentioned: justice, judgment, and fairness. These were not chosen randomly. They cover the entire range of ethical behavior and human relationships. Justice, the Hebrew word tzedek, refers to doing what is right before God and man. It's living according to God's standard of righteousness. Justice isn't just avoiding evil, it's actively practicing good. It's treating people as God wants them to be treated. It's being upright in a crooked world. Judgment, or mishpat in Hebrew, refers to the ability to make correct decisions, especially in complex or conflicting situations. It's wisdom applied to moral dilemmas. It's knowing how to act when there's no obvious answer, when both sides have valid arguments, when principles seem to conflict. Equity, mesharim in the original, means uprightness, impartiality, and integrity of character. It's treating everyone fairly, without favoritism. It's not having double standards. It's being the same person of integrity in public and in private, with the rich and the poor, with friends and strangers. Together, these three concepts form the foundation of a healthy society and restored relationships. Without justice, oppression prevails. Without right judgment, chaos reigns. Without equity, favoritism and corruption dominate. This verse shows us that true biblical wisdom is never merely theoretical or spiritual in a disembodied sense. It always has practical implications for how we live in society, how we treat our neighbors, how we conduct our business and relationships. For us today, this verse is especially relevant. We live in a time of extreme polarization, where justice is often reduced to the agenda of a political group, where judgment is replaced by immediate emotional reactions, where fairness is abandoned in favor of self-interest or tribalism. Proverbs calls us back to the divine standard. God's wisdom produces people who are just in their dealings, wise in their judgments, and equitable in their relationships. These are not optional virtues for the Christian. They are essential expressions of a life transformed by divine wisdom. It's also important to note that these three qualities cannot be separated. We cannot be truly just without exercising good judgment. We cannot practice genuine equity without a commitment to justice. They intertwine, forming a fabric of character integrity. Verse 4, to give prudence to the simple and knowledge and discretion to the young. This verse shows us that the wisdom of Proverbs is democratic and accessible. It is not reserved for an intellectual or spiritual elite. It is especially directed at two groups who need it most: the simple and the young. The word simple here is not an insult. The Hebrew term petty refers to naive, inexperienced, and easily influenced people. These are people who have not yet developed discernment, who believe everything they hear, who follow any trend. They are not necessarily foolish by choice, but rather due to a lack of experience and instruction. The goal for the simple is clear: to give them prudence. The Hebrew word orma means shrewdness in the good sense, the ability to think ahead, to foresee consequences, to not be easily deceived. It is to develop a practical wisdom that protects against traps and deception. How many people today are simple in the biblical sense? They click on any link, believe any fake news, follow any guru, fall for any scheme. They are not evil, they are naive. And Proverbs exists to transform this naivety into prudence. Then the verse specifically mentions young people. Why? Because youth is a time of formation, when standards are established, when character is being shaped. Decisions made in youth often determine the trajectory of an entire life. What do young people need to receive? Knowledge and common sense. Knowledge, dath, is accurate information about God, about life, about how things work. But knowledge alone is not enough. That's why the verse adds common sense, mazima, which means the ability to plan, to think strategically, to make wise choices. A young person may have a lot of theoretical knowledge but no practical sense. They may know many things but not know what to do with that knowledge. Proverbs offers both information and application, knowledge and the wisdom to use it. This verse also reveals something important about God's heart. He does not give up on the simple. He doesn't ignore inexperienced young people. On the contrary, he provides a complete manual of wisdom specifically for them. This shows us that God values education, development, and growth. For parents and educators, this verse is a reminder of our responsibility. We can't simply expect our children to figure things out on their own. We need to actively teach them, instruct them, and equip them with knowledge and common sense. Ignorance is not bliss, it is danger. For young people themselves, this verse is an invitation. Wisdom is available, knowledge is within reach, but it is necessary to seek it, value it, and prioritize it. In an age of endless distractions, choosing to sit at the feet of wisdom is a revolutionary act. There is hope here for all of us too. No matter how simple or inexperienced we are, transformation is available. Prudence can be learned. Common sense can be developed. It's never too late to begin growing in wisdom. Finally, this verse reminds us that God meets people where they are. He doesn't require us to be wise before we come to Him. He welcomes us in our simplicity and youth, and then patiently molds us into prudent and sensible people. Verse 5. A wise man will listen and increase in knowledge, and a man of understanding will acquire wise counsel. Here lies one of the most counterintuitive truths of Proverbs. Even the wise must keep learning. This verse undermines the idea that there is a final point on the journey of wisdom, a final diploma that we say, "Now I know everything." The wise will hear. Note the verb is in the future tense. It's not the wise has already heard or the wise knows. It's the wise will continue to hear. And the hallmark of a truly wise person is not how much they know, but their continued willingness to learn more. There's a profound irony here. Foolish people think they already know everything and therefore stop learning. Wise people recognize how much they still don't know and therefore remain open to instruction. The fool closes their ears. The wise keep them open. Will grow in knowledge. The Hebrew word for grow here has the idea of adding, increasing. It's not starting from scratch, but adding to the existing foundation. Wisdom is not static, it is dynamic. It's not a treasure we bury, but a tree that continues to grow. The second part of the verse adds another layer. And the discerning will acquire wise counsel. The word understanding refers to someone who already has discernment, who has already developed a capacity for deep understanding. And even this person needs wise counsel. Wise counsel. The Hebrew word tashbaloth is fascinating. It comes from a root meaning rope or nautical guidance. It's like the ropes that guide a ship. They are strategies, wise directions that keep us on the right course even in turbulent waters. This verse teaches us that no one is too wise to receive counsel. In fact, it's the opposite. The wiser you become, the more you realize the need for multiple perspectives, other points of view, and mature counsel. Think of the wisest leaders you know. They surround themselves with advisors. They ask for opinions. They listen before deciding. Foolish leaders, on the other hand, isolate themselves, reject counsel, and make unilateral decisions. This verse also warns us against intellectual or spiritual pride. It's easy, after years of studying the Bible or living as a Christian, to think we've arrived. But true spiritual growth is marked by growing humility, not growing arrogance. For modern culture, this verse is particularly challenging. We live in the age of the expert who supposedly knows everything about their field and doesn't need to listen to anyone else. We live in a "I Googled it" culture where everyone thinks they can be their own expert on everything. But Proverbs calls us to something different, a perpetual learner's stance. No matter our age, experience, or accomplishments, there is always more to learn, always perspectives we haven't considered, always wisdom we haven't yet acquired. This verse also has practical implications for how we structure our lives and communities. We need to create spaces where continuous learning is valued, where asking questions is not a sign of weakness, where seeking advice is seen as strength, not incompetence. Finally, there is a profound spiritual principle here. Growth is the hallmark of life. What stops growing is dead or dying. A faith that is not constantly refined, expanded, and deepened is a stagnant faith. The wise never stop growing. Verse 6, to understand proverbs and parables, the words of the wise and their riddles. This verse completes the introductory section by explaining another fundamental purpose of the book, to equip us to understand deeper forms of wisdom. It's not enough to simply hear wise words. We need to develop the ability to understand them in all their layers and nuances. To understand Proverbs, here's a fascinating meta-statement. This is a book of Proverbs that exists, in part, to teach us how to understand Proverbs. Why? Because Proverbs are not simple, straightforward statements. They are dense concentrations of wisdom that require reflection and contemplation. A proverb is like a seed, small, compact, yet containing within it the full potential of an entire tree. To unleash this potential, we need to plant the seed in our minds, water it with meditation, and give it time to germinate and grow. And parables. Parables are stories or comparisons that communicate truth indirectly. They don't say everything explicitly. They invite you to think, to make connections, to discover deeper meanings. Jesus would use this teaching method extensively centuries later. Why does God communicate wisdom through proverbs and parables instead of just giving us a list of rules? Because He wants to develop our ability to think, not just our ability to memorize. He wants to make us wise, not just rote obedience. The words of the wise, note the plural, not just one wise man, but multiple wise men. Wisdom is a conversation that spans generations. The wise men of the past speak to the wise men of the present, who speak to the wise men of the future. We are tapping into a river of wisdom that flows through history. And they're dark questions. The Hebrew word chida refers to difficult questions, intellectual puzzles, things that require deep thought to understand. Biblical wisdom is not simplistic. It honors the complexity of life and reality. This is important because real life rarely comes with easy answers. Most decisions we face involve nuances, specific contexts, and multiple factors. The riddles of wisdom train us to deal with this complexity. This verse also warns us that not everything in Proverbs will be immediately obvious. Some truths will reveal their depths only with time, experience, and continued reflection. We shouldn't be frustrated if we don't understand everything at first. Wisdom reveals itself progressively. There is also an invitation here to a community of learning. When we encounter a difficult proverb or a challenging riddle, we don't have to struggle alone. We can seek the interpretations of the wise who came before us. We can dialogue with mature brothers. We can explore deeper meanings together. For our time, this verse is an antidote to the culture of three-point summary and quick answers. It calls us to a slower, more contemplative, and deeper way of engaging with truth. It invites us to savor wisdom, not just consume it quickly. This verse also validates serious study and careful reflection. It's not a waste of time to meditate deeply on a proverb. It's not an exaggeration to want to understand every layer of a parable. This kind of intellectual and spiritual work is exactly what Proverbs wants to inspire us to do. Finally, there's an implicit promise here. The ability to understand these profound forms of wisdom can be developed. No one is born knowing how to decipher wise riddles, but through consistent study of Proverbs, our minds are trained, our discernment sharpened, and we become capable of grasping ever deeper truths. Verse 7, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." Here is the most important verse in the entire book of Proverbs. This is the foundation upon which everything else is built. If you forget everything else, remember this: the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The word beginning here is rishith in Hebrew, which means not just the chronological beginning, but the essential foundation, the most important part, the primary element without which everything else crumbles. It's like the foundation of a house. You may not see it, but without it, nothing else stands. The fear of the Lord. This phrase needs to be carefully understood. It's not paralyzing terror. It's not fear that makes us run from God. It's profound reverence, holy respect, recognition of God's majesty and holiness. It's knowing who God is and who we are in relation to Him. Fearing the Lord means taking God seriously. It means recognizing that His words carry absolute weight. It means understanding that there are real consequences for our actions because we live before a real God who sees everything. It means that His approval matters more than anything else. Why is this the beginning of knowledge? Because without this foundation, all our knowledge will be distorted. If we don't start with God, we will start with ourselves as the center of the universe. And a map with the wrong center will take you to the wrong places, no matter how detailed the map is. Think of a calculator operating with the wrong number as its base. All subsequent operations will be wrong. Likewise, all knowledge built on a foundation other than the fear of the Lord will ultimately lead to false conclusions. This verse also tells us that true knowledge is not morally neutral. It is not simply objective information that anyone can use however they wish. True knowledge is intrinsically linked to a right attitude before God. The second part of the verse presents the contrast. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. The word fools here is evil in Hebrew. It doesn't merely mean a lack of intelligence, but a moral rejection of wisdom. It's a choice, not an inability. Despise is a strong word. It's not simply ignoring or forgetting. It's actively rejecting, considering worthless, treating with contempt. Fools look at wisdom and instruction and say, "I don't need that. I don't want that." Why would anyone despise wisdom? Because wisdom requires change. It requires admitting we're wrong. It requires submission to an authority greater than ourselves. And the proud human heart resists all of this. This verse divides humanity into two fundamental categories: those who fear the Lord and seek knowledge, and those who are foolish and despise instruction. There is no neutral middle ground. You're either building on the right foundation or you're building on sand. For our generation, this verse is particularly challenging. We live in an age that proudly proclaims knowledge while systematically removing God from the equation. Universities teach knowledge in every field while considering faith in God as something private or irrelevant. But Proverbs declares that this kind of knowledge without God isn't really knowledge at all. It's a sophisticated illusion. Real wisdom, true knowledge, begins with recognizing who God is and our accountability to Him. This verse is also an invitation and a warning. The invitation: start here, with the fear of the Lord, and everything else will begin to make sense. The warning: reject this foundation, and no matter how much you learn, you will remain fundamentally foolish. Verse 8, "My son, listen to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching." With this verse, Solomon shifts tone. After establishing the theological foundation, the fear of the Lord, he now shows us the practical channel through which wisdom is first transmitted: the family. This is a moment of profound intimacy. "My son," this expression will appear repeatedly throughout Proverbs. It's not just a literary formula. It's the heart of a father speaking with tenderness and authority at the same time. It's personal, direct, full of affection. Wisdom is not transmitted through cold lectures, but through warm relationships. Solomon is modeling something here. He's showing that teaching wisdom to children is not optional for parents. It's essential, and the way we teach matters as much as the content. There must be love, connection, and relational presence. Hear the instruction of your father. The word hear here is Shema in Hebrew, the same word as the great commandment, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord." It doesn't just mean allowing sounds to enter your ears. It means paying attention, obeying, applying. A father's instruction isn't just random information. It's wisdom distilled through experience, guidance born of love, correction that comes from someone who knows you deeply and wants the best for you. A father who instructs is a father who cares. But also note, and do not forsake the teaching of your mother. In a culture where women were often marginalized, Proverbs elevates the mother's role to the same level as the father's in transmitting wisdom. This is revolutionary. The word for teaching here is Torah, the same word used for God's law. A mother's teaching is not trivial or secondary. It has divine authority. Mothers are primary theologians, fundamental educators, essential transmitters of the faith. This verse assumes something our culture often denies. Parents have not only the right, but the duty to instruct their children in wisdom. We should not completely outsource this responsibility to schools, churches, or other institutions. The family is the first school of wisdom. There is also a recognition here that fathers and mothers contribute in unique ways. The father brings one perspective, the mother another. Both are necessary. A child who listens to only one parent is receiving only half the wisdom available. For children, this verse is a call to humility and honor. Even as we grow up, even as adults, there is wisdom in honoring the teachings we receive from our parents. This doesn't mean blindly agreeing with everything, but it does mean giving serious weight to what they taught. This verse also speaks to a modern crisis, the breakdown of the intergenerational transmission of wisdom. We live in a culture that values youth over experience, novelty over tradition, individualism over family heritage. The result is each generation trying to reinvent the wheel. Proverbs calls us back to a healthier model. Wisdom flows through the generations. What your grandparents learned can save you from years of pain. What your parents experienced can light your path. But what if your parents weren't wise? What if they didn't teach us well? Then this verse becomes a model for what you should be to your children. Break the cycle. Be the parent who imparts wisdom. Start a new family tradition. Finally, there is a beautiful image here of the very nature of God. He is our Heavenly Father who instructs us. He does not leave us orphans, without guidance, and when we listen to His instruction, we demonstrate that we are truly His children. Verse 9, for they will be a graceful diadem on your head and chains around your neck. This verse answers a question every young person asks, even if they don't verbalize it. Why should I listen to my parents? What do I gain from it? Solomon answers with a powerful poetic image. The wisdom of parents will become an ornament of beauty and honor in your life. They will be a beautiful diadem on your head. A diadem was a crown, a symbol of honor, dignity, and authority. In ancient culture, a crown on your head signified worth, someone worthy of respect. The promise here is that obeying your parents' instruction doesn't diminish you, but elevates you. The word beautiful adds another dimension. It's not just an ordinary crown, it's a crown of grace, of beauty. Wisdom doesn't just honor you, it beautifies you. There's something attractive, something magnetic about a person who lives wisely. And necklaces around your neck. Necklaces were ornaments of beauty and again symbols of status and honor. In some ancient cultures, special necklaces were given as rewards for distinguished service. Joseph received a gold necklace when he was elevated to power in Egypt. But notice what Solomon is not promising. He doesn't say, you will become rich, or you will be famous, or your life will be easy. He promises something deeper and more lasting: honor, beauty of character, true dignity. This is a remarkable promise because it goes against our natural intuition. As young people, we often feel that obeying our parents limits us, restricts us, makes us less interesting or attractive. Proverbs says the opposite. Obedience to wisdom is what truly adorns us. Think of people you know who live wisely, people who honored the teachings of their parents and God. There is something about them that attracts others, a quiet dignity, a beauty of character, an honor that doesn't need to be advertised because it is evident in everything they do. Now think of people who rejected all instruction, who lived only for themselves, who despised wisdom. Even if they achieved wealth or outward fame, there is often an inner ugliness, a lack of true dignity. This verse also teaches us something about the nature of true beauty. Culture tells us that beauty is physical appearance, expensive clothes, designer accessories. Proverbs says that true beauty is character forged by wisdom. It is integrity, it is honor, it is living by solid principles. For parents, this verse is encouraging. When you instruct your children, when you discipline them, when you set limits, you are not being cruel or restrictive. You are placing crowns on their heads. You are adorning them with necklaces of honor. You are giving them gifts that will last forever. For children, this verse is an invitation to take a long-term perspective. Yes, parental instruction may seem limiting now. It may feel like you are missing out on fun or freedom. But Proverbs promises that in the end, you will discover that you have gained something infinitely more valuable, true dignity and beauty of life. There is also a deeper spiritual truth here. When we obey God, when we follow His ways, we are not diminishing ourselves. We are being crowned with glory and honor. Obedience to God is not degrading servitude, it is elevation to our true identity and purpose. Finally, this verse reminds us that the choices we make today determine the person we will become tomorrow. Each time we choose wisdom over folly, each time we honor instruction over rebellion, we are adding another jewel to the crown, another link to the necklace of our growing dignity. Verse 10, "My son, if sinners want to seduce you, do not consent." Now Solomon moves from theory to practice, from principle to application. After establishing the value of parental instruction, he immediately warns us of a real and present threat, the seduction of sinners. This is the beginning of a long section of warning that extends through the next few verses. "My son," again, the fatherly, intimate, urgent tone. This isn't an academic lecture on ethics. It's a father grabbing his son's shoulders and looking him in the eye, saying, "Listen to me. This is important. Your life depends on it. If sinners want to entice you, note that it's not if perhaps, but when." Solomon isn't speaking of a remote possibility. He's assuming it will happen. Temptation isn't a matter of if, but of when. You will be tested. The question is, will you be prepared? The word sinners here refers specifically to people who have chosen a lifestyle of rebellion against God. These aren't people who occasionally stumble or fail. We all do. These are people who have embraced sin as their identity, who have made injustice their habitual practice. They want to entice you. The Hebrew word here means to attract, to persuade, to convince. It's not brute force, it's subtle manipulation. It's making wrongdoing seem attractive, logical, even necessary. Sinners rarely say, "Come and do something obviously evil." They package evil in convincing justifications, and here's the crux. Do not consent. Simple, direct, powerful. Don't say yes. Don't go down that path. Don't make the first move. The Hebrew word has the force of do not desire, be unwilling, firmly refuse. This verse recognizes something many parents and educators fail to understand. Peer pressure is real and powerful. It's no use simply telling young people, don't do bad things. They need to be prepared to resist social pressure, convincing persuasion, and subtle seduction. Why are people enticed? Because sin doesn't come with horns and a pitchfork. It comes with alluring promises, social acceptance, exciting adventure, quick profits, immediate pleasure. And these promises aren't completely false. There is pleasure in sin, but it's temporary and costly. This verse also teaches us that not consenting requires a prior decision. You can't wait until the moment of temptation to decide what you're going to do. At that moment, under pressure, with emotions running high and peers watching, it's too late to make a wise decision. The decision needs to be made now, in advance. For young people today, this verse is extraordinarily relevant. Peer pressure hasn't disappeared, it's multiplied through social media. Seduction hasn't diminished, it's become more sophisticated through media and culture. The offers of sinners have never been more attractive or accessible, but the wisdom remains the same. Don't consent. No matter how convincing the argument, no matter how popular the person inviting you, no matter how great the fear of being excluded, the path of wisdom is to say no. This verse also has implications for how we choose our friendships. We will all be influenced by the people we spend time with. If your closest friends are sinners, people committed to a lifestyle contrary to God, then you are constantly swimming against the current, resisting the temptation. Finally, there is hope in this verse. You can resist. You can say no. You are not a helpless victim of circumstances or social pressure. With God's wisdom and the support of wise parents, you have the power to choose the right path, even when the wrong path seems more appealing. And so we conclude the first 10 verses of Proverbs chapter 1. We saw Solomon lay the foundation. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of all true knowledge. We saw the essential role of parents in transmitting wisdom. And we saw the first great test, how to respond when sin seduces us. These verses are not just ancient words in an ancient book. They are living truths that speak directly to our choices today, to the pressures we face, to the decisions that will shape our future. In the next video, we'll continue exploring chapter 1, delving deeper into Solomon's specific warnings about the dangerous paths we should avoid. Until then, may you meditate on these truths, and may they become graceful diadems on your head and necklaces around your neck.